Okay, so it took me some time to get this video, but several have asked me for a quick walk around, and that's what I'm going to do. And after that, I'm going to fire the engine just for a few moments. Some people tell me this boat is a 10 out of a 10. As far as I'm concerned, a 10 out of a 10 is something that's still in the showroom. And trust me, there still are flaws in a showroom boat. I'll give this boat a hard 8 out of 10. The amount of boats I went to look at before I bought this one, everyone says, oh, they're mint, they're cherry, they're a 10 out of 10. And when I went to see them, I could have strangled the people. I mean, they were junk, they were rotted, they had stress cracks all over the place. It's a total waste of my time. So anyhow, I'm going to point out a couple things that I think could be a reason to where it's not a 10 out of a 10. I don't know if you could see it. And I tried to do this real quick before the sun comes around, because when the sun comes around, I won't be able to see the screen. Usually these Daytonas stress crack in here, down in here, in both these corners. This is absolutely clean, flawless. The only problem with this here, see this rubber rail where it pops out? This has been here like this since 1995 when I bought the boat. Now when the sun hits it, it'll soften up to where I could push it in and it'll stay. When it gets cold, it pops out. I wasn't going to force it in there with a pop rivet and take a chance on tearing it, because I don't even know if this insert is available anymore. So walking around the boat, you can just see the reflectiveness. The sun is right above me. I'm going to try to do it quick so I could still see the screen. Now what happened is, and I'll tell you real quick, I'm going to point this out to you because I'm just trying to be as honest as possible. When I got this boat, it did not remotely look like this. I bought this boat because it had no stress cracks and because it was a 21 Daytona. I could care less if it had a jet drive or an outboard or an IO in it. I bought it for what I bought it, but it did not look like this. When I first got it, I spent a ton of time wet sanding and polishing the original 7-color gel, which is extremely expensive to get nowadays. I did that for years, where I would wet sand it and polish it with a buffer and then wax it, and it held up for many years. It looked great. It really did. It absolutely looked great. But it got to the point to be where the black in the gel coat was starting to give up, to the point to where I just couldn't fight it anymore. So my brother used to do street rods for like Hot Rod Magazine and stuff like that, and what he suggested I do, and what I did was to cover the original gel coat, all the gel coat, all the way down and to the side. And also, look, it still has a sticker from 2015. However, I didn't use this boat since May of 2013. So I didn't even put the new 2016 sticker on it. Here in PA, you get a sticker every 2 years. So I removed everything. I removed this rub rail, I removed headlights, I removed windshield, I removed all the interior, which, by the way, I'll explain when I get inside. I also had that redone to match the original. And what I did was I replaced any wood that was questionable before I took it to the upholstery shop. Before I had it reupholstered, any wood that was questionable, I made new templates. Let me show you. Like that there. You see the new wood? Any wood that was questionable, I replaced and used fiberglass resin to seal it. Same thing for here. I think maybe one of the backs I replaced. This seat, in other words, this was okay. There was nothing wrong with that. But the framework under here, and it's impressive how this is put together. But the wood that is sandwiched between that framework, I replaced and I urethaned to make it worry-free. So anyhow, back to the gel coat. I removed all the interior. I removed all the gauges, all the dash. I removed the little trim that you see going around the inside of the gunnel. I removed all that. I removed the headers. I removed everything. I removed the tank fillers, everything that had to do with getting a clear coat on this was off the boat, so that this way there was no chances of the clear starting to pick, which someone asked me on the phone. They says, Ray, are there any signs where the clear is lifting? Hell no. All this was gone. The boat was up off the trailer. So I put 3 coats of, back then, what was PPG's equivalent to Emeron, and they used it on commercial airlines. So I did the whole deck, wrapped it around. The sides are flawless. There's no marks on it. And just went to the very edge, and there's no areas at all where any of the clear is lifted. And the reason I did that, like I says, the black was starting to give out. It was just starting to oxidize. I'd find myself spending almost 2 hours waxing, polishing and waxing before I used the boat. And then wherever the water would hit the boat, like let's say back here when you're coming up on plane, this usually gets washed with water, especially this area, the black would kind of oxidize right out. And I became a slave to making this thing look ridiculously good. So I kind of got tired of that fight, and I put a clear coat on it, and I never regret a second of doing it. Like I says, to me, a 10 out of a 10 boat is something that has not even left the showroom. But even with that, there are flaws in this gel coat. For instance, this little mark here, that's in the gel coat. Whoever Daytona laid this up, Eliminator, that was in there. There's a couple other little spots here and there, but I'm going to try to give you a quick walk around real quick. The tires have no dry rot. They got tons of meat on them. And as far as the fenders go, let me get on this side. I think I'm going to start fighting the sun. All right. On this side, about 2011 or maybe 10, I removed the whole fender assembly because behind the fender mount there was plywood, and that wood was rotting out. So I removed the fenders and I completely cleaned them, took out the rotted wood, put a new piece of wood in there which runs the length of the frame. I used the fiberglass resin to seal it, and I bolted it back to the trailer with galvanized nuts and bolts. Also, this inner padding here, this wood behind here is all new as of about 2010, 2011, where again, the old wood was given up from 83, and I made templates and I sealed it with fiberglass resin, and I also used a marine foam in here so it wouldn't rot, and I covered it with marine grade vinyl, which I still have some. And I also left little cuts down in here so the water would drain and not accelerate rotting. Let me move around. The hose is here because I am going to start the boat just for a few moments. A lot of people are going to piss and moan and say, well, you can't do that with a jet boat because you just can't. Well, I wouldn't do that with just any jet boat. If you do not know the condition of the pump, I would not start a boat out of water. However, in here, 2 bowl bushings, there's no gears, there's just 2 bowl bushings that support the shaft. And if these bowl bushings are tight and there's clearance in the impeller, I don't care if you have 5 thousandths clearance or 10 thousandths or 50 thousandths clearance. Clearance is clearance. As long as these bowl bushings in here are tight, you can briefly start it. There's no problem on the hose. You can do it. I've done it since '96, since I've rebuilt this pump, since I've done the pump setback. I did it all myself. I made all this custom transom adapter. You can see that. I made that all myself, and I did the setback myself. And I got some very good help from some of the best in the industry. They told me, Ray, whatever you do not bust out the back of the boat, which I didn't do. I left a solid inch, and I made this custom transom adapter that turns in. I made it myself, but I could still remove the handhold cover in case I get a piece of debris, like a piece of wood or something, in the impeller. Let me come around the back this side. I have these on because, trust me, when I tow this boat, people get distracted, and this kind of helps them pay attention so I don't get rear-ended. When I tow this boat down the road, people just get up next to me and they stare. And I appreciate it, but it does get kind of scary. Alright, real quick while I'm here. The trailer bunks, the wood, originally I believe a competitor or competitive used redwood. Well, the redwood was giving out, so back in 2010 or 11 I replaced the wood with 2x12 by 18, and then I used a heavy carpet, which you could see, and I replaced those with new galvanized hardware underneath. I'm going to say about 2010 or 2011. Now try to keep in mind, again, like I said, I haven't used this boat. I used it once in 2013, and it's sat winterized since then. Real quick, I'm trying to do this before the sun comes out, even though the sun would show just how much gloss is on the headers and the really cool old Mickey Thompson valve covers. I wouldn't be able to see the screen, so I'm doing this real quick before the sun comes out. The battery I bought in 2013, which is kept in the house on a tender. I don't know if you could see right there the fuel filter water separator. You could see how clean the bilge area is. There again, I did the I did the pump set back myself. Trying to hurry up here. The water that enters the headers is filtered. The water that enters the block is filtered. So this block has no sand in it, and I would not suggest using these filters unless you have your system plumbed, because if you have too much pressure you'll just blow them apart. I also have shut-off valves on each header line, and what this allows me to do is adjust them to make sure the steam coming out of the back of the headers, it starts steaming and stopping at the same time. The headers themselves, some people ask me about them. Let me go on this side, I got a little better light. The headers are in great condition for what they are. I mean, there's absolutely zero chrome on the collectors. There's zero rust on the collectors. There's no rust on the primary tubes. However, someone asked me, down in here where they can't get the chrome to bite, this is where they usually get a little rust. Now what I do to retard that is every time I winterize the boat, every time I'm done using the boat, I flood this area with WD-40, all these cracks. I also shoot WD-40 in the back, and I also, the weep holes under here, people will ignore them. Well, I get in there with the WD-40 straw and I load them up, so this way, these are solid. I've seen some that you could almost push your thumb through. It was horrible. The alternator, I just had the alternator completely rebuilt, and I tell you, the guy did such an amazing job. It had a diode in it where it wasn't putting out as much voltage as it needed. And he gave this thing back looking better than new. He media blasted it. He did the armature windings. Just amazing. I just did this back in June. Again, here's another header line. Now this engine is a 468 Chevy, real quick. Cool scoop, huh? It's a 468 Chevy, 10.5 to 1 compression. I'm not going to get too much into detail. It's a full roller cam with a Voodoo, Lunati Voodoo roller cam, 049 heads, 118cc, 10.5 to 1 compression. Let's see, ARP head bolts. The mains for the studs for the mains are studs. They're not bolts. Okay, real quick. A little more of the engine. It's got crane. I think it's 8.8 firewire. I don't know, something like that. But anyhow, I don't know if you could see the automatic greaser. Some people are against them, but then again, what they do is they put the wrong spring in there. The thrust bearing does not want a full packing of grease. If anything, that's bad for it. But I found with this automatic greaser, and the research I did, they use these on some big like turbine bearings. And the deal of it is, if you put the right spring in it, it doesn't force grease into the bearing. What happens is, when the bearing needs grease, it will actually allow it to suck it into it. So it's quite a good system, and it leaves out the guesswork of, well, how many squirts did I put in the bearing? You know, there's no guesswork with that. And again, you can see how clean. There's some reflecting. This looks like dirt, but that's just, I don't know, it's just the way it's reflected. Gate valve, horn. Okay, let's see what else. Oh, I was saying real quick about the wheels and the tires. Tons of meat on them, no dry rot, no crack. I rebuilt these completely. What I did do back in June, this past June, I come to find out the wheel seals were dragging. So instead of rebuilding them, I went out and I purchased 2 brand new aluminum wheel seals with new bearings and new bearing seals. So there are new wheel cylinders, brake wheel cylinders on the 2 on the 2 braking axles. So they were just done also. Someone asked me about, I was going to point something else out. Like I said, I'm going to try to find the flaws. Well, right here, like I said, the rubber rail was off. All this was off when I put the clear coat over it. And one problem is, if you could see it right here, well, I guess from hitting it with gas a couple times, it doesn't affect this clear coat. This clear coat's like iron. It took me days and days of block sanding just to level it and buff it out. But with this, I'm pretty sure I just used a rattle can and a rattle can clear. And right here is where, over the years, some gas did get to it. So again, I don't think that, you know, it's a used boat. I don't think that's too terribly bad. Let me go back to the deck real quick. The sun's coming out, which is going to hurt me. And I don't know if you could see it. The hockey pucks, right here, there's a little, it looks like a scratch, and I don't know if it's a scratch from where I use a washer with, on the end of an extension pole, and maybe something got in it. But I could pick it with my nail, and I haven't tried to sand it out. Honestly, it doesn't even bother me. I'm not even going to worry about it. Well, the sun's starting to come out pretty heavy, so I can't even really see the screen anymore. Over here, now again, this is 7 color gel, with the exception of the black. It does have, I masked this off and I laid down a black base coat because the original black gel was just dead. These colors were good, this was dead, so I put down a black base coat just on the black because it makes it pop again. You know, it has more contrast, right? And it wouldn't have looked that good if this was still the black gel coat. Over here, it's a brown fade. Now, I don't know if they could fade gel coat or if this is a paint that Eliminator used. But under the clear, there is some little checking under the clear. I don't know if you could see it. It's very faint, but I mean, it's just right in this area. Like I said, I don't know if it was a defect in the factory. Even a new boat's gonna have flaws, and they just let it go. So, I mean, I'm sure I sanded it, but I didn't want to burn through the paint if it was paint. So I kind of had to let it go and just cover it all in clear. Again, another look at the seats. There's no tears, there's no rips, there's no fading. The seats are still very soft and pliable. You know, very particular about how I am in the boat. I would say no one asked me about the carpet, but I will say this. When I got this boat, again, it didn't remotely look like this. I saw a boat that had potential and no stress cracks, and that's why I bought it. It didn't have carpet in it to begin with. It was just, I think under there is just black, like gel coat. I was going to put down a fancy high-grade, thick marine carpet, but for getting in and out of the boat, which I always get in and out from the back and then step over the seat, if I put something in there of high dollar, high quality, maybe a tan or something that matched it, and it got dirty, it would just make me fucking crazy. So all that is indoor, outdoor black, I guess AstroTurf. In the center, I did glue it down. Over here, nah, I guess you can't see it. That's real nice and shiny. This carpet here is still real good because it doesn't get much use. But over here, you can see a little bit of wear, and that's from where your foot just sits. So there again, you know, that's something I just want to point out. It's like a $10 piece of carpet, and if I keep the boat, I'll replace it. Again, what I think was cool about this boat, some people might not, it doesn't have a fancy Nakamichi or Alpine stereo. This boat came with, in 1983, a Sparkomatic AM/FM. And some people think it's cool as shit, and I gotta say I agree. It doesn't have fancy speakers. I don't know if you could see under there. It just has two box speakers hanging. And you know what? For me, that's fine. I'm not into having 10,000 watt audio system with 50,000 speakers hanging all over the interior. But all this was completely removed when I did the clear. This trim was gone when I did the clear. Like I said, I didn't want to have any places where the clear could possibly lift. And I put a nice tooth bite on the gel coat with like 600, I believe, to even make a clear coat bite. And there's 3 coats of clear on this finish. So there's your big pedal manual place diverter, which I like. I've driven them with hydraulic and I don't like it. Here's the big pedal. Okay, here's a diverter, the steering, everything. Let me get over there real quick. Try to bear with me. Again, the pump setback work that I did. Jack McClure at MPD did the machining of the intake when I sent it out to him, and I fabricated the transom adapter. So again, there's more of the interior. There's more of the dash. The steering is butter soft. I replaced the cables when I did the set pump. With the pump set back, I got a new cable for this. I got a new cable for the diverter because I needed the extra inches. And the back seat went back about 6 inches with the pump. So I'm going to pause this for a minute and I'm going to fire the engine real quick. I'm not going to talk with the engine going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the water. It shut off to the engine until I get some flow out of the diverter. Then what I do is I close off the intake some until I get flow, until the engine is full, and then I get some flow out of these ports, and at that point I'll fire the engine. And I'm not going to talk. I'll just do it for a few minutes and I'm going to shut it off. Let me pause this. Alright, so I got water coming out of the block, water coming out of the diverter. I have a remote start here. Let me give it a shot of gas. And it should start. that's about it. Let me shut this off. We're off. And that's about all I can give you guys. I know there's pictures, there's information out on performanceboats.com. If there's any other questions, you got to give me a call. But I think I pointed out what I feel are the flaws, which are something like this. But then again, compared to the boats I've seen that people told me were a 10, this boat is just, you know, it's just there. It's ready to go. The trailer's sound and solid. And if you have any other questions, you can get to me on performanceboats.com, where my ad is. The sun's coming out, so you can see the reflectiveness. Let me see if I can get this real quick. Yeah, I don't know if you could see under there. Don't mind the baby pool. It's for my dog. But you could see where I rebuilt the trailer bunks, and I also put, wherever there's a support, I put screwed and glued with liquid nails construction adhesive 5/4 decking. So it actually raised the boat up another maybe 3/4 of an inch. And like it says, the sun's already starting to heat up. This'll stick in when it gets really hot. And that's about it. So hope I answered some of your questions, and this gives you a better idea of what it is and what I got. And it won't be a good day for when I sell it, but it's you know, I think I'm kind of done. Health is getting in the way. That's about it. Thanks.